I got a PS5 update. You can finally save PS5 games on the hard drive.
I didn't know you couldn't do that.
I might say that's just a thing that you couldn't do.
For some reason, when it came out, you could only save it on like the PS5 itself and not your external hard drive, which like is kind of nonsense because after a few PS5 games, you're going to be out of storage. But they finally like dropped a patch to like use it on.
Fam, remember disc?
Intended purpose.
I remember discs because I still buy discs. I need those things on my shelf.
It made me delete. Okay, so I have Kingdom Hearts 3 and I was playing it on a disc, and for some reason it made me delete the disc version and download the digital version. Like it legit like
how do you delete a disc?
I don't know. It was just
it made me break and throw away my disc in order to keep playing the game.
Throw it in the trash. You can't play unless you throw it
insert
in.
disc. Insert disc into garbage.
Yeah.
Man, that's wild. I got my PS5 the moment it came out. I played Miles Morales that weekend. Loved it. And I have barely turned on my PlayStation 5 since. Barely.
I knew you were going to say that. Why did I know you were going to? Thing costs like $800.
I know. I should have waited.
Yeah, okay. So, like, that's where they get you. Because I kind of feel like Sony knew that, like, they would drop it and then it'd become, like, hard to get for a while. But there aren't really, like, PS5 games on there. Like even like if someone asked you like what's a game you can play on there that you can't even play on like PS4, you got like what Astro's Playroom, like the tech demo that comes with the console.
Right, exactly. It's the equivalent of Wii Sports on Wii. You know, it's like
it's really good. Astro's Playroom is really good though.
Yeah, as is Wii Sports. I did turn it on. I did turn it on to play the Resident Evil 8 demo, which was pretty cool. That was PS5 exclusive, so that made me happy I had a PS5. But it was also like 40 minutes long tops, and then it was over. So that's all we got. I had a 10-hour Miles Morales campaign that I beat the crap out of. 40-minute demo.
I hope they make DLC for that game. I don't think they are, but
I don't think they are either. But I want it so bad. Oh well.
This phone won't turn on. I can't turn my light on.
Oh man.
I left my butt piece in the living room and I didn't feel like getting it, so I plugged my phone into my computer.
I can barely see your face. I see the difference with the light.
Yeah, I want to turn the light on. It's gonna look stupid.
Maybe your phone will turn on after the theme song.
Wait, really? We're gonna do it.
I've been watching them for years, it's always been something that fit with all the animated characters that's doing their own bits. With a fry who's in the future and a family guy that sucks. With a father from a hill, a burger family runs about the show, and Spies is the same guy except he totally say and diverse.
Let's watch cartoons that curse.
Yeah, that's bananas.
That's rough.
All right, let's start the episode. What the is up, everybody? Welcome to Cartoons That Curse. This is a podcast where we talk about cartoons that use swear words. Today, we're going to talk about Rick and Morty Season 1. I'm here with my co-host, Tariq.
Yo.
And a very special guest, Kevin Williams, a.k.a. AwestruckVox of the Round Table. Welcome, Kevin.
How's it going, everybody?
It's going.
Happy to be here.
It's going great. I'm really excited to talk about Rick and Morty Season 1 with you guys. It's been a long time since I watched it. It was an interesting rewatch.
Yeah.
Kevin, I know you're a big fan. It's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is going to be fun, John. Oh, man.
I want to say that the three of us usually stay on Discord calls until maybe like 2 a.m. our time. And that is the first time there has ever been a silence like that ever. That is not a usual thing that happens.
Oh, man. Do you guys know much about the inception of Rick and Morty? Do you know where it started? You know that info?
Sort of.
Yeah, Rollin' TV, right?
It was Channel 101. Well, I guess there's Rollin' TV and then also Channel 101. I think they were kind of around the same time. Channel 101 is a program. It's like a short film festival monthly that Dan Harmon created. And it basically it was a pretty cool idea. Basically, what people would do is they would create a short film. They would all go up against each other every month. There would be 10 of them. And then the top 5, it was always voted on by the audience, and the top 5 would make it on to the next week or to the next month. And then whoever made it would have to make a second episode for the following month. So it was like an ongoing festival that you also needed to get the approval of the audience in order to keep going. So that's where Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland met. And I believe that's where he started putting out a lot of these ideas that eventually evolved into Rick and Morty, including like the Doc and Marty animated short,
right?
Which is obviously just a Back to the Future parody.
A very foul one.
Yeah, it's rough to watch that one back these days, but you see where this show came from in there. And then there's like a bunch of other stuff he made. Like he and Ryan Ridley pitched a show called Dog World, and the theme song for Dog World is actually the theme song for Rick and Morty. They just stole it because that didn't get picked up. And then and then I guess we'll talk about it in the second episode, but there's a whole inside joke in the second episode of season 1 that's about Dog World. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, now you get it.
Okay.
Now,
all right.
Now I get it.
You just saved the episode.
The other interesting thing is that this was kind of written when Dan Harmon was fired from Community briefly for that one season. So he got fired from Community for season 4, and then he and Justin apparently wrote the pilot episode over a 6-hour period before refining it. And then he got rehired on Community, so he still had that to do. But good thing they did that, because that's kind of set them up for life. Rick and Morty, literally 100 years Rick and Morty is going to be the situation here.
Thank you, Gas Leak season.
Yeah, seriously. Let's talk about the pilot. How do you guys feel about the pilot of Rick and Morty, which aired in 2013, 8 years ago? That's stupid.
That can't be right. Damn,
that's right.
I was in high school. That's rough.
Yeah, man. They take a long time to produce this show.
Watching this after Futurama was nuts, because this episode is nonsense. Like, this entire thing is borderline noise. Like, I don't know. I was so used to just the structure and the foundation of Futurama for so long. We watched it over a month that, like, when I got here, I was like, wait, what the hell are they doing? Like, what is this one even about? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, that was my initial, like, my reaction the whole time. I was just kind of like, what are they doing?
Yeah, the pilot is very much all over the place, which I feel like is part of, like, the idea of what they're going for, just showing how chaotic a single Rick and Morty adventure can be. Mm-hmm. I think they did a great job. Like, that first scene is iconic. That's one of the best ways like a TV show could start. Something that I think because something just about Rick and Morty in general that's felt in this first season especially is it very much feels like a marriage of the two kind of Adult Swim shows you'd usually find. Because, for every Venture Brothers, you'd have Aqua Teen Hunger Force, or Space Ghost Coast to Coast. A lot of, like, nonsensical improvised shows, and then you have the more fleshed out scripted shows that are typically a half hour, like, again, Venture Brothers, The Boondocks. And Rick and Morty kind of felt like this mixture where it has kind of like the plot of that scripted half hour show, but the dialogue has that chaotic energy of their improvised 11-minute shows. Right. And I think that really kind of pulled me in, just because, like, the way they speak in Rick and Morty is just like, what other show is like that? But I also think something with the pilot, especially, is that they kind of rely too heavily on, like, that gimmick of just saying words funny and stuttering. I remember when season 1 was airing in general, my uncle saw it, and he's someone who, like, he will watch animation whenever like he's in town with me. Like since I was a kid, he watch animated shows with me, and could not. He was turned off by the fact that like Rick was constantly burping and had like the little bar the little alcohol drool on him. And I think that later on in season 2, that's something they actually toned back or like toned down a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like even after the pilot,
does Rick even still have the drool?
I don't think he's got it all the time anymore.
No. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a rarity now.
That was the thing I noticed about this is like it feels so loose down to the delivery. Like everything's so loose about this pilot.
There's no structure,
right. But there's like, but the weird thing is that like Dan Harmon is known for his structure. Like the Dan Harmon story circle is the thing that they like adhere to. So it's so interesting when you have this show that feels so loose and feels so improvisational and feels like anything could happen at any moment. And no other show feels like that. But at the core of it, like they go through every single episode and they make sure that story like fits into Dan Harmon's story circle. That's like how they write every episode of the show. And I think that kind of speaks to what Kevin was talking about. Like it's such an amalgamation of that, of like a structured sitcom and a loose improvisational Adult Swim chaotic mess,
Right.
And so nothing else had ever really married those things before. Not to this degree, I don't think. But it's this episode feels different. Rick feels like a different character in the pilot to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. He's kind of like pathetic in the first scene because he's like pathetically drunk, I guess. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, come on, let's do something. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of that. Like
and to have your opening scene have Morty need to like overpower Rick and be like, Rick, we're not doing this anymore. Like that doesn't feel like a thing they would have done even by the end of the first season, No. And I guess they've kind of moved a little bit more into that as the show has progressed, but it doesn't feel like this episode doesn't feel like Rick is a guy with a plan and like bigger. It feels like he has a bigger knowledge base than Morty, obviously, but it doesn't feel like he has a contingency plan for everything that's going on like he kind of does in later episodes.
Yeah.
So like even when when Morty breaks his legs and Rick's just like, all right, I'll be right back, and he goes to get him the like serum or whatever, and he basically explains to Morty how like he got sidetracked while he was gone, and now we're gonna have to go through this other means to get home, which is like funny for the plot, but it doesn't feel like something that Rick would have done in a later episode. You know what I mean? It feels like he would have had that planned out. He would have known that problem it was going to exist.
I mean, comparing that moment to just like the Vat of Acid episode where arguably Rick's greatest line in that episode is every Rick has a vat. It shows definitely like the contrast and like what his character becomes and how Rick almost becomes kind of I guess for lack of a better reference, Batman.
Right. Totally. Rick does feel it feels like he becomes Batman gadgets wise, but then also there's a degree of like the science becoming magic. So he's almost got superpowers through magical science stuff. But it definitely, he doesn't seem as mean. He's not as mean in this episode.
No,
he's like,
not at all.
He's mostly just like, I just want to go on an adventure with Morty. And shit happens while they're having that adventure, but he's pretty supportive of Morty at certain parts. Like there's that line where Morty turns on his like gravity boots and they run up the wall and he's like, oh, the student becomes the teacher, which is like not a thing Rick would say after this episode.
Yeah, he's much more of just like a fun drunk grandpa, just like like you go over your buddy's house, their fucking dad's drunk, they're like, hey, how you doing, champ? But chaotic.
Yeah, even the fact that they call him Grandpa Rick in this season a lot is like they don't call him Grandpa Rick after this. Yeah.
Which one do you prefer? Which one do y'all prefer? Like which characterization do y'all prefer?
Well, we only saw this one once, like I guess
it kind of bleeds into a couple of the other ones after this though. Like he's not.
Yeah, but even.
Yeah, I feel like season 1 Rick in general is a lot more like he feels like someone who isn't afraid to show that he cares about his family, but he's just very much like easily annoyed by it.
I feel like
there's like a cut
I feel like,
somewhere where it switches in this season.
To me, it feels like episode 5 and 6 are where Rick becomes a little more assertive. Like you can see hints of it, like in the second episode when Jerry wants him to make the thing for the dog. He's just like, all right, I'll do it, but I know this is going to end badly. Like he's clearly got a superiority complex about it, and he's like, all right, good luck with this one, Jerry. You know, but he's not like super mean about it. He's like, you just kind of see it like start to gradually move in that direction. But even that doesn't feel the same as episode 1. It's like it feels like a little bit of a different attitude than in episode 1. I think like part of me personally misses the like just like, oh, the dumb drunk grandpa going on adventures, but the other part of me feels like that maybe doesn't work as well as a conflicting character for an ongoing show. You know what I mean?
Get you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What can he like learn that way?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I get you.
I kind of like how they move him into a more like a sadder territory on an existential level versus a like pathetic level. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other thoughts about the pilot? Is there anything else that stood out to you about that one?
There's that quiz that Morty's taking in class. It just says like 6 + 3.
Yeah, it's a very simple. Why, is he really in high school? Like,
yeah, I don't. I wrote down that I'd love to take that quiz. If that's how it was, if that's how they high school is, then like.
I love Mr. Goldenfold. He's such a funny side character. The math teacher.
5 more minutes of this,
math.
and I'm
without it, none of you would even exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. I remember watching the pilot. It leaked. I remember it leaked early, and I watched it with my roommates at the time. And I remember thinking, this is good, and I can see the potential of this show. Like, I can see that this show has a high ceiling. This could be really cool. And then I felt like when they finally released the second episode, it kind of blew my expectations out of the water almost immediately in terms of what they were going to do with the show.
Yeah.
Because episode 2 is called Lawnmower Dog, and it's both an Inception parody and a Planet of the Apes parody. And they kind of seamlessly tie those plots together by the end in a really fun way. And that was what blew my mind. Like, I remember watching it and I was like, oh, the Inception stuff is fun. Oh, the dog Planet of the Apes stuff is fun. And then the big twist at the end where they tied those things together, I was like, oh my God, I did not see this coming. Like, this is genius. Yeah. What do you guys think about Lawnmower Dog?
Scary Terry, in my opinion, is one of the greatest Rick and Morty gags. Just because, like, because I don't know, it starts off so simple. It's just like, oh, he just says bitch a lot, but then they play into it so well with how sincere, just like his delivery is. Like, oh, bitch, like that is ingrained into my head.
I thought that was so smart to because, like, obviously he just when he starts, it's like, oh, it's just a Freddy Krueger knockoff. But then you go and see him at home, and you see his home life, which is so funny to me.
His wife's pissed at him.
because he says "bitch" at home. He's like, out there, not in here. And I love that. I love that his son is named Scary Brandon. That's really funny. That was a really, like, that's a third parody within this one episode. That's a third thing that they parodied. They used Inception and Freddy Krueger in one thing, which is kind of a natural addition. That's kind of a fun crossover there. But to me, the highlight of the episode, I like the Inception stuff, but the highlight of the episode is the snowball stuff, the dog stuff.
Yeah,
that stuff
I agree.
Yeah, and that stuff is so funny, and that also blew my expectations out of the water because they did a fun sci-fi premise with the ongoing family drama, which, like, I always thought, and that's immediate. Like, in the second episode, like, the first episode has some family drama with, like, Morty doing bad at school, but the second episode they centered the family drama around a sci-fi idea, and that kind of made me realize, oh, this show's going to be different. Like, this is going to be fun and different than I thought it was.
Yeah, I feel like with Snowball, they use that subplot to very much establish the family dynamic within each other beyond just Rick and Morty, just because, we always do see Rick and Morty together, but because of how integral the Smith family is to both characters, I feel like they did a good job of portraying the. I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
Sorry.
I think I made my point clear though. I like how they set up the family, but I had something bigger to say, but it lost me.
The other day I was trying to tell a joke on a Zoom call or on a Discord call, and I literally forgot the last word of the joke. And so, so I was two words and I was into the joke, and the last word I was like, what was I saying? It was just silence. Like, damn it, really blew that. I feel like the first episode's family dynamics were more about Rick's effect on the family. That was like the main focus of that episode in terms of Jerry and Beth concerned that Rick is a bad influence on Morty. And then the second episode really establishes like the interpersonal relationships between Jerry and Beth and Summer, and how Jerry is a little more pathetic and easily, they really highlight how little Beth thinks of Jerry, even in the second episode.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it gets worse as the show goes on, but
right.
But even with the dog thing, like the moment it happens, she's just like, "Oh, this will go well." This is gonna go well. No faith in Jerry whatsoever.
Yeah.
You can't.
Am I boring you? Am I boring you, Kevin? Are we boring you?
It's 6 p.m. It's cloudy. It's prime yawning time. It's not.
No, it's not.
I also noticed. So I made notes of these things as we went on. But since Tariq and I just watched through a bunch of Futurama, I'm noticing a lot of premises that are very similar to Futurama. Mostly because they're just sci-fi premises, and they're like bound to do the same ones and take them in new directions, but
right.
Down to the idea of a hat that makes an animal smarter that was used in Mars University in season 1 of Futurama, and that's what they do here with Snowball and his intelligence helmet.
That's true.
Which is funny. Yeah, they take it in very different directions, but
yeah, absolutely. And you said it, you touched on it before, but yeah, I found the dog stuff more interesting and memorable than everything else that was going on in the episode. And I do really like how the plots combine. But so it wasn't this episode. I think it might actually be the next one. But like around like so I watched the pilot, and I was like, okay, this is not how I remember it, but all right. And then I got to this one, and that's the thing. My opinion on Rick and Morty has always been that I always thought it was fine. Like I always thought it was cool, it was funny, and that's kind of it. Like I remember when the show was first airing, there were all these fucking video essays and people raving about how smart it was, and it was doing stuff that like people had never seen before, and I never really got that. I just kind of thought it was cool, and even down to the stuff about the Harmon, what's it called, the Harmon Circle?
The story, Harmon's story circle.
Yeah, it's just the hero's journey. It's one of the first things you learn in film school. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a simplified version of it.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
I really like the story circle, but it's not like groundbreaking. It's just a nice tool to help you plan out a story. That's what it's for. Yeah,
absolutely. Saying that to say though, these first couple, I was just kind of like, I wasn't having a good time. I'm gonna be completely honest. I wasn't having a good time. I don't think the pilot or this one are like bad episodes of TV or bad in general or even unfunny, but like me personally, I wasn't having that good of a time. But I can still acknowledge like, yeah, I like I like the story that they're going for here, and I like how how everything is set up. But for some of these earlier ones, they don't really amount to the sum of their parts, I guess.
It was an interesting rewatch for me because I was like very obsessed with this when it came out. I rewatched. I remember after the 6th episode they did a little hiatus, and over that hiatus, even just after 6 episodes, I rewatched those first 6 episodes over and over again. I've seen season 1 so many times. I've seen season 2 a lot of times as well. And then like basically season 3 and on is where I've been like, oh, I still like this and this is good, but I'm not like my obsession kind of subsided. But it was interesting to go back and rewatch because I really haven't watched through season 1 in a couple of years at least. And while I still like it a lot, and there's a lot of things I really love about it, I didn't find myself quite as enamored as I had been previously. Some things didn't quite live up to my memory of it, and some other things I still was like, oh, this is smart, this is fun, this is a good play on this trope and that kind of stuff. But it was an interesting rewatch. It was really interesting. I was expecting to come in and be like, season 1 of Rick and Morty was the best season. You know, I was like, I was ready to be like, this is my shit. I love this. But I overall was just like, it's still good. I like it a lot. And we'll see how it stacks up comparing to later seasons as we keep going. But I didn't love it as much as I expected to.
Yeah, no,
I think there's a lot of charm to season 1. I think especially for I feel like more than any other season, because it did have to lay the groundwork, there is a bit more kind of low-key continuity, as you guys were saying, with like the family dynamics, and I feel like that kind of continues throughout the season.
Right.
But it never overshadows an episode. Like a plot line, the plot line doesn't really carry over, but the feelings do.
Right. There are like only a couple elements that are serialized in this first season, and the rest is otherwise very episodic. Although it does use things, it does things with that small bit of serialization that were kind of mind-blowing, in my opinion, at least. I guess we'll get there, but like,
at least for the time.
Especially for the time, at least, especially the big season 6 twist in the end of that episode. I remember when that happened, especially because that was the last episode before the hiatus. Like when it came out, I was like, what? A show can do that? The internet was freaking out. Yeah. Yeah. But maybe that's a good time to move on from Lawnmower Dog, unless there's anything else you guys want to say about it.
Not really.
No, I'm good.
Well, let's move on to Anatomy Park. This is the episode where Rick sends Morty to find out what went wrong in Anatomy Park, which is an amusement park inside a homeless man. This episode's pretty wild. Futurama connection number 2, because they parody Fantastic Voyage, which is just going inside someone's body.
Okay, who doesn't parody Fantastic Voyage?
They do it on Phineas and Ferb.
Right. Everyone, yeah, exactly. Everyone parodies Fantastic Voyage, but having just watched Futurama, I was just like, how many things are the same? Like, how many different things did they both do? Yeah. This is a fun twist on Fantastic Voyage, though, because you think it's Fantastic Voyage, and then the twist is, oh no, it's Jurassic Park. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's which is a fun combination, and maybe a much less expected combination. There are things about, I think that I really like the Anatomy Park stuff in this episode, but I really like Jerry's journey in this episode. Jerry is like struggling with his mom and dad's new like partner relationship with that guy. And that was, I think, a funny way to challenge him. And it's like for the 3rd episode of the show, it's like an interesting route to go for your family story.
Yeah, I did like the direction they were going, but so this is the episode that made me realize a couple things about how I feel about the show. And the first being that I feel like, I don't know, it does depend on who you are, and I can only speak for myself, right? But like I feel like the show works in smaller doses, because with Futurama, I could watch like 4 or 5 of those without any fatigue. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just kind of do my thing. But with Rick and Morty, by even like in the middle of the second one, I was just kind of like, damn, how many more do I have to watch? But like this one in particular was the one that made me go like, oh shit. And it was also, I wrote down that this episode isn't as interesting to me as I think it should be. And I think it's because what I realized is that I think Rick and Morty has really, really funny concepts. You know what I mean? Like really, really like funny things. Just like, well, what did this happen? Like it's really like stuff like that could be really, really funny. Like the homeless man growing and like stretching across the whole country and shit, and like he's like butt ass and he's like all across the country. Like that's a funny concept, but it didn't get like an audible laugh out of me, you know. And I think it's subjective. I really do. I think it's just subjective. I think it might just be me, but I don't really know why that is. And this was the episode that kind of made me think about that a lot.
I honestly, I think Anatomy Park's like my least favorite of season 1.
Interesting.
I feel like none of the jokes really stuck with me anytime I've watched it. But to what Tariq said about taking it smaller doses, that's something about season 1 that I also kind of picked up on while rewatching. It's that like it feels very much designed to be a weekly show. Like even how one of the episodes ends with Rick saying like, "See you next week."
Right.
He does that a couple times, I feel like.
Does. Yeah. At one point I yelled, "Stop doing that."
And I think that was part of the novelty of when it was airing, is that it was self-aware that it was a weekly show. But I do think because of that, it, like Tariq said, you can get kind of fatigued easier.
Yes, I agree with that entirely, especially because especially in recent seasons, that's how I've felt about Rick and Morty. It's the show feels a little bit exhausting at times. And while I really like it, and I think it's really funny. Like I totally understand what you're saying about the giant naked sky Santa. It's a really funny idea, and I loved seeing it visually. It didn't make me laugh, although it did make me laugh when the newscaster said the naked sky Santa has exploded. The way that delivery got me pretty good, but it definitely feels, especially because I normally consume this show weekly. I normally consume this show one episode at a time, and that feels like the ideal way to watch it. It's a lot to binge. It's a lot
because they try to fit so much into just one episode.
Right.
But, it's very much just like rapid fire shotgun comedy.
Totally. If you think about Anatomy Park, it's like first Morty's getting shrunk down to go into the body. Then it's the reveal that it's actually an amusement park. Then he's going through all the amusement park. He meets all these other characters. Then everything goes wrong in the amusement park. Then they blow up the homeless man so that he's giant. You know what I mean? And it's like there's so many beats to that story. It's crazy. But it's it's interesting. And this though was before it started to feel like I feel like the episode after this, 104, M. Night Shaym-Aliens, is the first episode where they're like actively trying to stay ahead of where the audience's understanding of what's happening. I guess you get a little bit in Lawnmower Dog, but with M. Night Shaym-Aliens, it's the one where they're trapped inside an alien simulation. And it's just like all of the layers of simulations on simulations on simulations to like keep revealing and pulling back these layers. It feels like they were purposely trying to throw the audience for a loop. Which worked well. I like M. Night Shaym-Aliens. I think it's a funny episode.
I like that it's a Rick, Morty, and Jerry episode. I feel like that combination's rare, but it always gets a laugh out of me.
Me too.
I think there's just something about like Rick degrading Jerry and Morty never having like an inclination to stand up to his dad.
And it's interesting because it's also it ends up being a fake Morty the whole time, a simulated Morty the whole time. But I maintain that Jerry's subplot in this episode is still one of my favorite plots in the whole show. because it like perfectly highlights how absolutely like boring and pathetic Jerry is, where his absolute best day, the best day of his life, where he accomplished all of his dreams at once, was in a simulation running at like 10% operational power.
That presentation scene is hilarious.
It's so good. And then they fall the callback with the tag where he pitches it to the actual company and they just fire him on the spot. It's so good. There's so many good bits in that. Like, it's the way that he doesn't recognize that he's in a simulation. Listening to the radio, he's like, "Oh, human music. I like it." Yeah,
that's so stupid.
It's so stupid. But yeah, this is one where, and this is also kind of the first one where they peel back the layers and be like, "Oh, Rick knows more than he lets on," which is because it feels like he gets found out, he gets had by the aliens by the end of the episode, and then the reveal is like, oh no, he knew it was happening the whole time. He played them, even though it didn't feel like he was getting played.
This one has some of that different characterization we were talking about, because this one is kind of weird because it's kind of like a melting pot of both, because it does have that where he's ahead of. He's kind of like weirdly all knowing, like he's ahead of the curve always, like, which is just kind of his thing now. So there is that, but he's also really protective of Morty. Like, he gets pissed off not because of what's going on. He says, "They dragged you into this. Now they have to pay." You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Which is probably, so he probably wouldn't even. I don't see him saying that any later. Than this, which was like something that I noticed. Then also you brought up the tag at the end, which the tag, I do like the tags. The tags gave me my first audible laugh of the season. It was in the last episode where they were like Rick's on that conference call, which is really,
about the Pirates of the Pancreas.
If you've ever been on a conference call, that is literally that is exactly how they go. That's exactly how people speak. When Buddy was like, "So we stepped back and thought, what is a pancreas?" Like that. That's exactly what a conference call is.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. A monument to compromise. That's good stuff. There's also some good guest voices in this one. David Cross as the main alien is really funny, and then even some of the side. I think one of the side aliens was Maurice LaMarche, if I'm not mistaken, who's obviously got a lot of experience voicing aliens.
I recognize his voice, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like that one. And you guys got any more about M. Night Shaym-Aliens before we move on to Meeseeks and Destroy?
I just feel like this was the episode where you could tell they were having a lot of fun making the show, like more than anything.
Totally.
This is definitely the one where I wrote down. I guess we don't think about this a lot when consuming media, but Rick and Morty has to be an impossible show to work on and produce. There's so many new designs and locations and backgrounds in every episode. And this one is one of them, because they're running, like, there's just a scene where they're just running and they keep running into different locations. And I'm just thinking about, the poor production coordinators, background design, like, Jesus Christ, like how much hell is it to put this together?
Yeah, there's that chase scene in this one, I'm pretty sure it's in this one, is so... Oh, and the chase scene, maybe I'm also thinking of the pilot. There's another chase scene in the pilot that feels, they feel really dynamic, where like there's so many little stories happening just in the chase scene. Is it in this one or that one where like the guy sneezes and the little booger kid grows up and then dies like while they're chasing?
Wait, damn, which one is this? One of these?
I can't remember. It's during one of these chase sequences, but yeah, there's just so much happening in every single beat of the story. But I guess that's kind of what's fun about it. But again, it's also the thing that contributes to that factor we're talking about, which is like, this is maybe a better weekly show than it is a binge show, because it's just so much.
There's a lot to take in.
I mean, I feel like
go ahead.
Going back to like just it's so much to consume. I do feel like whenever I watch cable, if it's like 11 and Adult Swim's on, I'm like, oh shit, there's Rick and Morty, and I'll watch it till the episode's over. But then the next one will start, and I'll be like, all right, I gotta find something else.
Right, for sure. Yeah,
I've 1000% done that with this exact.
There's
show.
a lot of shows that I'm just like, keep it rolling. Like when I'm watching The Simpsons on Disney Plus, I'm just like, keep it rolling, keep it rolling. Like I can drink The Simpsons, you know. But yeah, there's some shows that are just like like this one where I'm just like, all right, that was a lot to process. I'm gonna come back in a few days and maybe we'll do it again.
But you know what's weird is that even another show that's a lot to process, like where especially later on, where there's just so much shit going on, like South Park. I can watch a lot of South Park. Right. But there's a lot of shit going on in South Park. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
But I feel like the stories in South Park are typically a lot simpler. Like the crazy shit will happen, but it's typically like in the third act. Right. Like Rick and Morty is kind of just like the entire time from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like South Park at least begins a little more grounded, but Rick and Morty, like I think talking about M. Night Shaym-Aliens, the opening scene is like there's subtext going on where you have to recognize that Rick is recognizing something is amiss, you know, and like Rick knows that they're in a simulation already. And he's the one who's like, oh yeah, this is real shoddy craftsmanship or whatever. But they don't outright tell you immediately. Like the opening scene is just like Rick knows something we don't. And until they say it outright, like you're just kind of starting to figure it out yourself. So there's definitely a little more to process with it.
No, absolutely.
Well, let's move on to Meeseeks and Destroy, which I back when this first aired, this was one of my favorites. And there's still a lot I like about it. But especially the Meeseeks story. But this is the one where Morty takes the lead on an adventure while the Smith family uses the Meeseeks boxes to help them solve their own problems. I think the Meeseeks are such a fun, stupid concept. It's such because it's like it's sci-fi, but it's also just dumb. Like that's
it's a really cool and dark concept. It's like, oh, you press the button, you create this life who has a purpose to serve you so they can die. But then you see they're kind of like, you know, they're blue, they're lanky, they have the fucking shitty little hair on their head. The fucking voice. I'm Mr. Meeseeks.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like a different show would have introduced this concept and then like it would have been an ongoing thing. And then by like later they would have revealed these like darker aspects of it. Like what if a Meeseeks doesn't fulfill its purpose? What happens then? But in this one, they just did it all in one episode where they're just like, oh, here's what the Meeseeks is. Oh, now the Meeseeks can't help Jerry because Jerry's an idiot. And now they like desperately need to die to the point where they become homicidal.
This is the episode with the cold open of the fake Smith family, right?
Is it? I don't think I remember. I just watched it today too.
Yeah,
definitely just watched it today.
Remind me what happens. Remind me what happens in that cold open.
Beth, Jerry, and Summer are like, I think they're like trying to kill Morty or something, and yeah.
This is the one where it's definitely the one where they're in some alternate dimension and the Smith family is like trying to kill them. And that is this one because that's the impetus of Morty being like, I'm choosing the next adventure. I don't want to kill my family next time I go on an adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is definitely this one.
It's so funny.
It's interesting they put that before Rick Potion 9.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's true. They're kind of slowly starting to introduce these concepts a little more subtly. It's not as overt.
Mm-hmm.
But I really liked the idea that like it feels like at this point, because what that cold open tells us is that like, oh, Rick and Morty are going on adventures that we already don't know about. You know what I mean? Like it feels like the show progresses a lot faster than another show would. And so like we're only on episode 5. And yeah, Morty's over it. He's like, dude, these adventures are the worst. I want to start, like, I want to take the lead on an adventure. And it's like, we've only seen 4 episodes before this. So they got to be going on their own adventures.
Yeah. He's like already just like, I'm done with your shit, Rick. Oh my God.
Right. Exactly.
Am I the only one that kind of felt like in watching these with the new perspective and knowing what we have later. This kind of feels like the first one that feels like a normal Rick and Morty, right? Like it kind of feels like one that they could do in like 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Like it is kind of paced and the characterization is right. Like
yeah. Something that I appreciate about this episode that I feel like is missing from other seasons is that with the Meeseeks subplot, it focuses on Beth and Jerry's relationship, but that's not really the only thing they have to say, because I feel like in season 2 especially, it's a lot of just Beth and Jerry arguing, but like here it's like, oh yeah, we're on the rocks, fucking Beth is like about to come onto this Meeseeks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
there's a lot
the
more
whole
going on.
the whole climax of it coming down to like the golfing,
which is
a shorthand.
Scene. I like that.
Which again is a really funny concept. The fact that he can't play golf, and that's what just it turns into this really big dilemma, and it's all because he sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's just a really funny. That's a funny concept, you know. And it did. I'm not. I don't know if it audibly made me laugh, but I thoroughly enjoyed all of that shit. Like I thoroughly enjoyed like all of that stuff with Jerry and Beth and everything like that.
With the Morty adventure, I really liked the idea that like, oh, Morty's leading on an adventure. It's a more typical adventure. Like it's like just like kind of a fantasy quest and not like a big sci-fi thing. So Rick's kind of like, what the hell is this? I don't care about like peasants and kings and like all of this shit. But I really liked how just every step of the way things are going wrong. Every step of the way things are going wrong for Morty's adventure, but he's so determined to lead a good adventure because he's like, I don't want to go back on one of your adventures where I have to kill my family or like, you know what I mean? And he's just determined to like be like, I can do this. I can lead us on an adventure. Which obviously culminates in like one of the most disturbing scenes in the whole show with the King Jellybean. Tough to watch that scene. But
it's just so it's so intentionally jarring because they play it straight.
Right.
And then Rick has a very serious reaction to it.
Right.
And but that's I feel like that is another moment where Rick actually shows that he does care about Morty.
Right.
Like more than just having him be like his sidekick, because like he exacts revenge. Like he immediately picks up like, oh shit, this guy like fucked up Morty. Like I'm gonna fuck him up back.
Yeah, and that's kind of why like, well, I feel like that I wish they had maybe played that scene different, just because it's like it's just like really rough to watch.
I don't think
really
it aged brutal. Well.
It definitely didn't.
No.
But
it's
the like purpose of it within the story, where it was like it was like the thing that was so horrible that would make even Morty, through his determination to make this adventure good, he was finally just like, no, let's just go home. Like, this is terrible. I hate this. And of course that's the moment where Rick is finally coming around and he's like, no, it's a good adventure, Morty. Like, we're having fun. I just want a bunch of Smeckles. Like, let's hang out. And I do like what it meant for like that. There's a little bit of that development in terms of like, oh, it shows that Rick really, really does care about Morty, even if he's outwardly the whole time being like, oh, Morty, your adventure's dumb. I want to go back and do my thing. At the very least, it's like he deeply cares for Morty and will protect Morty when he needs to.
I guess I do kind of feel like, man, they could have just had some people fuck him up in the bathroom, like, you know what I mean? Like
anything else.
They could have jumped him, like, I don't know. It was
instead
it was kind of rough.
A very uncomfortable, like very real, just like what he's like, don't be such a fucking tease. It's like, whoa,
because
and I think it's also Tom Kenny doing the voice. It's just, oh man,
it is, isn't it? Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I think it is. It's just, ugh.
Could you imagine? Man. He's like, wait, you know I'm SpongeBob, right?
Yeah, right?
I will ebb it on Winnie the Pooh. I can't read this.
Oh, man. Yeah, so like I overall got mixed. Like I overall really like this episode, and I feel like that scene knocks it down for me. Like it feels like they could have they could have just done that. They could have gotten the same idea across without being so like dark and triggering, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where going back to like, again, doing it from like the weekly lens, it's like, oh, we're gonna shock them this week, but it does harm its rewatch value. Because I can understand getting a shock from it the first time, but like you're not going to want to sit through that scene any other time.
No.
Right.
No. Yeah. It's
right.
rough because this is, like we said, this is a fun one and it's a great concept, and
it's arguably one of the most iconic ones because of the Meeseeks. They're like a mascot for the series.
Yep.
Totally.
Absolutely.
And like when I would start rewatching it earlier, I forgot that scene was in there.
I did too, and I actually forgot while we were talking.
Right. I always remember that scene. That scene always stood out to me as like almost a little too dark, and I feel like even back then, and so like on rewatch in particular, I was kind of dreading it. I was like, all right, here it comes, and it was as bad as I anticipated. I was like, oh, just like they could have. Something they could have handled differently to get the same idea across for sure. I do love sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it just didn't feel like a Rick and Morty scene. Even like when the show becomes like, even with like the darkest scenes in later seasons, it never has this tone. Like it's never played straightforward. And I know like I've seen people like defend the scene because it is played straightforward. Like, yeah, that's the point. But I feel like it, like, again, it harms the rewatch value as a whole.
Right. I definitely like it. That definitely is the point, and I get like you can definitely argue that was the point, but I still don't think it justifies the execution. Its inclusion, personally.
Yeah.
Right. My favorite joke in the episode is such a dumb joke, and it's when the lawyer comes in to protect Rick and Morty from the like court case, and he goes, "My clients are free fi to faux home," and everyone's like, "What?" and he's like, "It's the thing we say. I was deconstructing the thing that giants say," and that to me felt like such a writer's joke, where like somebody pitched that joke in the writers' room, and the writers were like, "What?" and the writers like, "It's the thing giants say." And it's like literally what they say in the episode was just what they said in the writers' room.
There's something like that later on in the season for me. That's not even a joke, but we'll get to it. I think it's in the last it's in the last episode, so we'll get to it.
I feel like there's often things like that in this show where it's like, oh, that feels like that just feels like a conversation they had in the writer's room and just put on the page.
We're not gonna get to this episode. I think it's next season, but when the president is saying, "Yo, we should call the Dream." And then they're like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "The Dream." I wrote "Single Ladies." Like he's like listing off his discography. Like,
right.
That's definitely like a. It's like, wait, y'all don't know who the Dream is? Like
that was a writer in the room being like, "Wait, do I really have to say the Dream's discography to you?"
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really funny. Let's move on to 106. Rick potion number 9, which I think is an all timer. Rick makes Morty a potion to make Jessica fall in love with them. Which is a very like that is just a plot that's existed over time. Like the love potion idea has existed before, and I think they took such a smart direction with it by combining it with the whole flu season situation, where the effects of the potion are transmitted to people who pass the flu on to one another, and it's such a fun escalation of the love potion idea where they're like, oh, they're too in love with Morty. It's like a primal obsession with Morty. And now everyone's obsessed with Morty because everyone got the flu.
Right.
Yeah, I really like this episode.
All those Morty jokes are hilarious. Like the fucking DJ, I love Morty.
That was pretty good. I did like that.
I like the DJ singing his flu rap.
I like that too.
Rapper. I'm a flu hating rap.
There's a lot of jokes like that in this episode. The episode opens with a joke like that with the intercom. And he's like, "You don't bring dead babies to Passover." It's like, fam.
Wait, isn't the first line of that episode like, "Principal Vagina speaking"? Just immediately.
He says, no, I think his line is, "Principal Vagina, no relation." Or maybe that's in the pilot episode.
Yeah.
That's his first one. Man, I I love the way they like.
It is in this episode. Sorry, wait. I did not mean to cut you off. But, no, yeah, it is. It is like principal vagina, and he says something like, "Yeah, like no relation," or like,
"I'm very much in charge."
Yeah,
there's one of them that says like, "I have authority." Like, don't. Yeah, it's like some shit like that.
Yeah. I there are so many little there are so many little character things in this one that are so funny, and performance things. Like I love, and that's Dan Harmon doing the flu hating rapper, which is so funny. Like Dan Harmon's just got a goofy voice. But I'm just a flu hating rapper, just rapping away. It's so funny. And then even just like the way everyone changes when they start to become obsessed with Morty. Like when Brad becomes obsessed with him, he's like, it's like, I really like you, Morty. Like, Morty.
I got my boy.
Yeah. Oh man.
I will say that you just brought up Brad. In the first scene we see Brad, he has what I think is the best character acting so far in the season. Like, and it's kind of indicative of what the show does later on, because the show has great character acting. Like the characters always moving, doing gestures with their arms and stuff like that, like really making really expressive faces. And you know, they're trying to figure the style out in the first season, so you don't really get too much of that. But the first scene of Brad where he's just kind of, it's like, yo, you think you could talk to her? Like talking to Morty like that? Like,
right.
There's really great acting on him in that scene. And was one of the first things I caught.
Yeah.
I love his design. I don't know, something about season one I really like. Like, I think that's something that also appealed to me watching it for the first time in 2013, were just like the character designs, just because cartoons were kind of in that weird period where we were getting some shows that like were up with the times of how people looked. And I feel like Rick and Morty was one of them. Like everyone had a jock in high school that looked like Brad. You just did. But I feel like that was kind of a rarity for that point, at least to have like a black jock like that.
Oh, okay. This is what I wanted to bring up when we were talking about the pilot. So do you remember when the show first came out and people, they had a problem with the pupils? You remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
How did y'all feel about, I mean, nobody cares now, but back then, did you even notice? Did it bother you? Like,
no, I liked it. I thought it was a cool, like, it was such a simple and unique thing that kind of differentiated the show from other stuff. I'm like, oh, it makes it, like, the show felt loose, and like that added to that vibe. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And I also like it now. Like, it seems like that is the like Roiland design style. Like a lot of these animators end up having their kind of style. Like Groening's obviously had 3 shows that look similar, and like same with Seth MacFarlane with his style. But like Solar Opposites very much looks like it you know, design wise fits right into the world of Rick and Morty, and I like that. I don't know, that's a thing I like. It's a thing I like in TV. You know, I don't need my shows by the same creators to look drastically different. I kind of like them having a stamp on it in some way.
Yeah. And I haven't seen Solar Opposites, so I can't really speak on that. But I can say about Simpsons, Futurama, Disenchantment, and also Family Guy, American Dad, Cleveland Show, is that like on surface they look similar, but if you watch the shows, like there are like very, very stark differences in how they handle design. Like a background character on American Dad is designed completely differently than a background character on Family Guy. That's not something you would catch on first glance, though. You know, it's just, it does kind of looks uniform when you step back, but when you like, if you were to watch the shows back to back, you'd be like, oh, they do this differently, they do that differently. But yeah, I'm the same way. I do like when there's kind of, you can kind of tell who did it. You know what I mean? Sure. I like that.
Even like between the 3 Groening shows, like obviously there are aspects to those character designs that are like, that's Groening, that's classic Groening. But you know, like even down to the fact that the Simpsons are yellow, and you know and the characters in Futurama aren't, you know, or in Disenchantment aren't, you know, it's like there's some obviously huge differences between them still. Anyways, I guess we should move back to Rick and Morty though. So Rick Potion number 9 blew my mind because they did this great thing with this flu season love potion idea, and then obviously everyone started like they tried to fix it. Everyone evolved into a praying mantis. Then they tried to fix it again, and everyone evolved into like a Cronenberg monster. But just the idea that the resolution of this episode opens up the Rick and Morty lore and world in the biggest way that any episode had, which is that it's literally the episode the universe we follow for 6 episodes is abandoned after 6 episodes, and they move into a completely different universe, and down to the point where the whole family are different versions of them now. Like that's right. That's a wild thing to do 6 episodes into your show. And I feel like that's one thing that even though the show is episodic, they did that a couple times for me in this season where they did something new where that kind of just expanded my understanding of what the show is capable of. And this is a big one. I really love the end of this episode.
I love how they bring it up later on in the season where Morty, I forget which episode, but Morty like brings it up to summary.
Rixty Minutes. Like,
that's such a random episode to put that in.
There's like weirdly, that's one of the reasons I actually love that episode though, is because I mean, obviously we'll talk about it in a minute, but because they're doing these like sketches of interdimensional cable, but at the same time, you've got this ongoing like dramatic existential story between Beth, Summer, and Jerry of like what is my existence? It could be different. They're having like this big existential crisis while Rick and Morty are just like, we're gonna watch some dumb TV, which I think was pretty fun. But we'll get into that deeper in a couple episodes. But yeah, this ending, and then also just the music track at the end is like pretty haunting in a way where they're burying their own alternate selves in the backyard. It's so messed up. It was so dark.
And then you see the skeletons in season 3.
Right. Yeah, that's wild.
Which is also rough.
Yeah, because they bring back the family from the original universe.
They do, right. Yeah.
And then the tag in this episode where they're just like I wonder what happened to Rick and Morty. It's like, but our lives are good now. Basically, they're just like, everything's better now that they're gone.
Right.
Do you guys have any other thoughts about Rick Potion number 9?
Yeah, I just feel like this episode really solidified the potential of Rick and Morty. I think this episode is also why a lot of people get frustrated at the later seasons, because it feels like while we have had changes in the status quo, none really feel as big and permanent as this one, because this one does stick and it is referenced even I would say kind of referenced heavily, just because even when they don't talk about it, you see the backyard, you see the spot where they're buried, like that is a consistent detail. And I think that was it was just kind of like that, something in the 2010s in general, when we were getting to more serialized cartoons, to see something like that in an adult cartoon was especially just a breath of fresh air.
Totally. Yeah, it blew my mind when it happened. And that was, I think I really liked these first 6 episodes, but that was like, after that happened, I was like, oh, this is like my current favorite show. And it remained that for a couple of years. Like I loved this show for the first couple seasons. I still like it a lot. I'm not trying to knock on it, but it was so fresh and so different and doing things that I wouldn't expect it to at the time. Yeah. And it's also got its own unique brand of humor. This is like definitely an all-timer for me. I love this episode. I think my favorite line in the episode, let me do my favorite line, which is when Rick's trying to fix everything and everyone becomes Cronenberg, and he goes, "Sometimes science is more art than science, Morty." You guys got anything else before we move on to 107?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Raising Gazorpazorp. This is the episode where Morty buys an alien sex bot without realizing it was made for procreation, and then he has to raise an alien child, which is... that's a funny premise. Like, it's a funny premise. Yeah. How do you guys think? What do you guys feel about this episode?
I I feel like it's recognizable now, man. I feel like this is the show that I thought I was gonna watch by this point. You know what I mean? Like,
this episode where I realized they're just gonna take like cool sci-fi concepts and use it just to like say random shit about like whatever's on their mind in the writer's room.
Right. I do feel like this is an episode. This is, I guess this is my third noticed Futurama connection, because it also features a planet of women who only use men for reproduction, just like the Amazon episode in Futurama. So we got 3 now. But I did like kind of similarly to the Amazonian episode, which Tariq and I talked about for season 3 of Futurama. I grew a little tired of the just like men and women commentary. It's like it's just a thing I'm tired of in these sitcoms. And I know this is like 7 years old at this point, so it's a little different.
That's crazy.
That is
yeah, isn't it? They're only about to do season 5, and this came out 7 years ago. But it's also interesting because I was thinking about this when we covered Futurama too, and like that Futurama writer's room is very male centric. There are some women in it, but it's mostly men. And this, for 2 seasons, Rick and Morty's writer's room is 100% male. It's a completely male dominated writer's room. And then seasons 3 and 4, they consciously were like, let's gender balance it. And they completely balanced it out and hired new writers. And I don't know. That's always something I think about when they do an episode that's like, oh, this is all about women commentary. This is all like jokes about like things women do. And I'm like, but it's also written by entirely by a group of men.
A bunch of dudes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there are some funny, there's definitely some very funny stuff in it. Like I love that like their mantra is just like, I am here if you need to talk. That's very funny. Like there's some really good stuff in there.
I do like that they say a historical incident was the Great Passive Aggression.
I think that's really very funny. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you on the stuff we talked about with the Amazonians, and this episode does something that is like a cheat. It's like a cheat. Like I think especially, I don't want to say just cartoon writers. I think writers in general hide behind this. And I don't know, I'm guilty of it myself. They hide behind identifying something so that gives them a pass to do it. So Rick goes, oh, okay, it's one of these stories. It's like, well,
right.
Yeah, cool. You know what it is, but you're still writing it. You know?
Yeah,
you're still doing it.
Yeah.
And you're doing the same beats, you know, except nobody learns anything at the end of this one. And that's supposed to be the joke, but still, it's kind of like, what are you doing the same thing?
It's kind of their thing. Like, even if you go back to episode 2 with the Inception thing, the whole time they're just like, it's just like Inception. So if it's confusing and stupid, you know, and so like just the fact that they're incepting dreams is like, oh, it works as long as they're continually referring to the fact that they're doing Inception. And they even do that now. Like the Vat of Acid episode that won an Emmy, the whole premise revolves around the reset button. And they specifically point out that Futurama did that in the episode. They're like, Futurama did it. Yeah. And so, you know, they definitely take it to a different level in the Vat of Acid episode. They take it like they do with many sci-fi concepts. They take it to another place that whatever has done it previously didn't take it to. But it is interesting to me. And I'm always going to be salty about the Vat of Acid episode because it beat The View from Halfway Down for the Emmy, but it is a good episode. I'm just salty about it.
That's rough. Why did you tell me that? I hate Rick and Morty now. Turn the episode off.
No.
Play the put the theme song right here. End card. Family Guy video. Playlist.
I don't want to hate on the Vat of Acid episode. It's a great episode. It's really good. It just is always going to bother me that BoJack never got that Emmy, and it should have for that episode.
It has an Emmy in our hearts.
Yeah, it has a couple in my heart. It has.
You can't put my heart on the mantle. I can't give my heart to Will Arnett. You know what I mean? Like.
It won a bunch of other awards, so that's okay. Yeah, I maybe guess. One day.
You could always be a cannibal.
Do you guys have anything else to say about Raising Gazorpazorp? I feel like I enjoyed this episode, but I didn't have much to say about it because in the end, their whole thing was like, there's no lesson. And so right. I enjoyed it, but I'm also part of me is like, I want to talk about Rixty Minutes.
I mean, I really liked Gazorpazorp as a character.
Yeah.
Playing that whole like aging just really fast and like thinking Morty he can't go outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. It was fun to see. It was fun to see Morty's struggles with being like an immediate parent. And
I was just about to say Morty's like delivery and just like how he's talking like a parent is just so good to me. He's like, is he like Gazorpazorp smoking?
Yeah, he's smoking.
Or no,
he just wants them to watch cartoons and play video games, but he keeps watching the History Channel.
This one also like really highlights how kind of like even I feel like the relationship dynamic gets even more messed up in this one because like you see Beth and Jerry just like the whole time like you're gonna mess up this child, Morty. Like you're totally gonna ruin this child. I'm like, man, that's dark and mean for you to say to your kid. Yeah, it was just like they both came across as a little meaner than I remembered in this one.
Mm-hmm. Man, and he writes that book at the end. My Horrible Day. Like, oh my god.
It's a thankless job, Morty.
That's rough.
It's
one
brutal.
last thing. I wrote in all caps with about 6 question marks. I wrote Marmaduke.
Marmaduke. That was so weird.
Yeah. That ruined me.
That was so weird to have Brad Anderson come in and be like, I created Marmaduke and I put all of my like dangerous energy into my horrible thoughts into my work.
Really See, that's what I'm saying. They use the concepts just to comment on shit.
Yeah,
right.
I love it.
Yeah. But then Jerry recognizes him, which is I think it's the best punchline of the joke is that Jerry's like, was that? Wow. Like
Brad Anderson. Jerry's a big Marmaduke fan.
To the point where he knows the man who holds the pin. Like,
right.
I'm a big fan of a bunch of strips. I can't tell you what they look like.
Right. For sure. He recognized Brad Anderson.
Yeah.
Just goes to show what Jerry does in his spare time.
Yeah, Marmaduke.
Watches Titanic, reads Marmaduke, and buys R2-D2 commemorative coins.
I would love to see Jerry's like Wikipedia search history. Did you know he used Wikipedia?
Oh my god, that's so funny. That would be a really funny kind of like extra content for shows to do is just showing characters' search history. That's pretty funny. Oh man, that's good stuff. All right, let's move on to Rixty Minutes. This is the episode where the family enjoys an evening watching interdimensional cable. I will forever love Rixty Minutes. I kind of talked about it previously. It's another one of those episodes where it's like, all right, well, we've already established all of these different dimensions. So they come up with this genius concept of like, well, if there's all these other dimensions, that means there's television in every one of those dimensions. So like, let's explore what the hell TV's like everywhere else. And so like, they almost feels like they created a new kind of episode because it's like a sketch. It's like sketches. It's just a bunch of sketches. But they're also molding them around, like I mentioned earlier, this actual pretty interesting existential crisis that everyone else in the family is feeling. You know, I feel like Morty has already gone through this existential crisis after he had to bury his own dead body. And now all of a sudden, Beth and Jerry are looking through the eyes of their alternate selves and seeing, oh, the world, like life could be better. Like I could accomplish my dreams here. In this other world. And Summer's like, I don't even exist in all of these other worlds. Like how meaningless is life? And the fact that it culminates in that really nice scene where Morty is just like, dude, look, I eat breakfast next to my dead body every day. Like nothing means anything. Let's just enjoy the ride, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like let's just be there for each other.
I also like how Jerry and Beth got like a genuinely sweet resolution to their subplot.
Yes.
But I hate how it gets kind of glossed over immediately.
It does. I think that's one of the reasons this episode works so well. And while I do like I like interdimensional cable too, I don't think it holds a candle to the first one because I feel like this one has funnier episodes of TV, but also the way that they were able to take this wild concept of interdimensional cable and weave an emotionally satisfying arc for characters within it.
It's the most heart so far.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I love Rixty Minutes. I think it's so fun. Do you guys have favorite shows that were on that they watched on interdimensional cable?
The Gazorpazorp field is the funniest thing in the entire season.
Gazorpazorp fucking
and you hear fucking Justin Roiland laughing.
But he laughs. He laughs, and it's so funny.
Oh, dude!
Anytime they laugh, John. There's two that I wrote down because they laugh in both of them, and it makes me. I love when they laugh. So it's Gazorpazorp Field, and it's the two brothers, and he's like, "It's two just brothers. Called two brothers." And
I also like it's another instance of them just calling out what they're doing because they're watching this stuff and then Morty's like, oh, TV has like an improvisational tone, and obviously all of these were just improvised bits. Like they had an idea and they're like, all right, Justin, take a shot and go ramble in the recording booth and let's see what happens. And
that's something I like about, I don't know if they still do that, but I know like for us season 1 I think they did that a lot because the voice actress for Tammy, I know this is actually in the season finale because I'm a bird person and everything, but I remember she was like, I just showed up to the booth and we were just sitting in the booth drinking and just like shooting the shit. They're like, yeah, just talk about like high school memories and like boys and shit. And I think that gave it, again, like that strong identity where it is the scripted series, but there's still a lot of improvisational bits that catch you off guard and kind of just maximize the laughs that you get more than like sometimes more than just like a joke that cooked in the lab for the longest time. Like sometimes
exactly
what's off the top of your head's just going to land so much better because it's going to catch everyone off guard. And I think
and you can kind of tell
episodes nail.
Totally. And you can kind of tell when it's off the cuff, even outside of this episode where it's framed around it being off the cuff. Like you can tell when a background line is like, oh, that was just something they fucked around and said in the booth. Like there's no way they wrote that. And that is really unique. It gives this show a vibe that no other show has.
Yeah. And it's reminiscent of, like home movies, Dr. Katz, that type of shit.
Sure.
But it does have, it's structured more than those. And that's what I think makes it different and special. Like, because there's instances of home movies where you can tell they wrote one sentence and told Brendan Small and
John Benjamin,
yeah, just talk. As long as you get to this point, you say whatever. You know what I mean? But here, there's more.
Listen
structure.
Up, Brendan.
Yeah.
What if McGurk was taking him on? Like, all right, Brendan, we're gonna go into the other dimension. We're gonna find those mega seeds, Brendan.
They would never run from anything.
It would just you're gonna put them way up inside your butthole, Brendan.
See that, Brendan? Yeah, you see that? Yeah. I want you to go.
I love home movies. We got to cover home movies eventually.
I can't wait to talk about home movies, man. One more thing.
Yeah.
About Gazorpazorp Field, and I promise, I swear to God, I'll shut up. The Lorenzo music conversation is so funny. Like, because it's just them. Like, there was because we watched, this is one of the ones we watched together, and I don't know if you remember, but I just kind of went like, what are they doing? Like, because they kept, it's like, it's funny because he played a character in Ghostbusters and Bill Murray ended up being I was like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
It was literally just a writer's room conversation where they were talking about like how weird it is that Bill Murray played Garfield. And that is a weird connection that like I'm pretty sure it's the same character that Bill Murray plays in Ghostbusters is played by Lorenzo Music in the cartoon. Like, that is weird. And then and then Bill Murray plays Garfield. Is bizarre. But it's so funny to just like, and that conversation feels like a real conversation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I love Rixty Minutes. I think my favorite, I love Gazorpazorp Field, but I always am going to love the Saturday Night Live bit. Just for like the payoff of, and for his 25th consecutive year, Bobby Moynihan. And he's not even on the show anymore, but that's just a funny bit that even in the alternate universe where a piece of toast is one of the members of SNL, Bobby Moynihan's still on there.
And Answer My Eyes Johnson.
Answer My Eyes Johnson is great. I hope my prices aren't too low.
I just see black.
Oh, good stuff. All right. Any last thoughts before we move on to the next one?
Oh, it's a great one. I like this one a lot. Yeah.
Great episode. 109 is Something Ricked This Way Comes. This is the one where Rick starts a rivalry with the literal devil who runs an antique shop with cursed objects that he gives away. This is based on Stephen King's book Needful Things, if you guys didn't know, which is kind of why that's what his store is called, Needful Things. Basically the exact premise, like the devil or whatever is giving away objects that are cursed. It's kind of also the idea behind that old Treehouse of Horror, where he gets the Krusty doll, where he goes to that store to buy the Krusty doll, but it's cursed.
Right.
So it's an idea that's been talked about a lot. The cold open with the butter robot is so good.
Yeah. That's my biggest laugh of the season.
Oh my god.
Yeah, oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god, that was my biggest laugh of the season.
So funny. I also think it's really funny that in the 10th episode, or no, sorry, the 9th episode of the whole show, Rick gets in a rivalry with the literal devil. That's how quickly they're moving with this shit. It's like they're only 9 episodes in, and it's like, oh, now it's Rick versus the devil. What do you guys think about this one? You guys have any thoughts on Something Ricked?
Honestly, this is one of like the less memorable ones to me. But it does have, I believe, the X gonna give it to you scene.
Yeah,
rest in peace, X.
Rest in peace, X.
Rest in peace, X.
Yeah, that scene is like fucking great. Like, regardless of like how I don't know, for some reason the story just didn't like capture me, but I feel like the payoff is just so good. Just write it up, Rick and Summer just beating the shit out of Nazis.
It's such a stupid resolution, but it is very funny. Like they just get jacked.
I don't know what it is about this one, but this was my favorite concept so far. That's crazy. That
interesting.
We like on like opposite ends of that. But no, I was into it. Because I liked what it was doing and saying about the characters. I don't know, I really appreciated this one. I also wrote that this when Jerry just kind of walks in and talk to Morty, and Morty's just like beating off, like it's like damn. He's like, I don't know, you might want to knock, you might see something that you don't want. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
You're really playing with fire here. Oh man. I do really like the idea of like Rick just being so bored. Like this, I feel like starts to establish kind of Rick's existential crises because he's just so bored that he's like, oh, I'm gonna like fuck up this guy's business, where he's like, he's like, you know what I mean? He's like, this guy is just cursing objects, and that's his whole thing. So I'm just gonna start my own business where I undo the curses, just to like prove that I'm superior, prove that science is better than the devil. You know what I mean? That I can outmatch the devil. You can tell it's
boredom too, because after he achieves what he was going for, he's like, I don't even really care, and this is gonna turn into work.
Yeah. And he sets the store on fire. Yeah, he's just like, all right, I'm out. I'm done with this. But it is an example of like that resolution is not a resolution. Like that is so strange, where it's just like they just like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? Like I guess they even talk through it like they would writers, where they're just like, well, what's the resolution? What did we learn here? Like, well, that's dumb. So let's just get jacked and beat him up. Like, that's all we're gonna do about it. Okay, I really do like. I do want to talk about though. I like the subplot in this episode where Jerry is championing the fact that Pluto is a planet. And to the point where the Plutonians are like, see, it's a planet, guys, nothing to worry about. And this is a really good character. It's a really good character building one for Jerry. And it's a fun pairing of Jerry and Morty, I think, because Morty is like, he can tell that like Jerry's doing something stupid. He's like, I just wanted to do my science project, Dad. And we're on Pluto now.
Something I do appreciate about this episode is that it is a Rick and Summer episode. I just feel like those are kind of like a dime a dozen, and that's a pairing that I do like watching on screen together. Yeah,
and I feel like I like how that dynamic has evolved over the past few seasons, where like it feels like more recently Morty's becoming smarter and he's understanding the multiverse and technology more, and therefore he's becoming a little antagonistic to Rick. He's like not just falling in line and following along with what Rick wants to do anymore. So like to see Rick kind of gravitate towards like, oh, I'm going to hang out with Summer now. Like Summer and I are having more fun than you, Morty. And I think that's like a pretty fun and interesting evolution of like the whole dynamic. It feels like Summer is definitely her role has increased as the show has gone on.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I forgot which episode, but in season 1, there is a point where like Summer's talking and Rick's like, I'm going to be honest, I don't value what you say that much.
yeah. He's like, I care very little about your opinion or something like that. Your opinion means very little to me. This is barely show related, but this is just a thing about Pluto. This whole episode is obviously about like Jerry, like, or at least the subplot is Jerry refusing to acknowledge that Pluto is not considered a planet anymore. And I know that's like a big thing in the world. Like there's a lot of people who had a really hard time with that. They learned Pluto was a planet growing up, and now it's classified as a celestial dwarf, and people are like, this is stupid. It's still a planet. But to me, what blew my mind about that is that I learned that our solar system has other celestial dwarves that are close to the size of Pluto. Like there's a planet called Ceres. It's not a planet, it's a celestial dwarf, but it's just like, to me, it expanded the solar system where I'm like, oh wait, there's more little planets out there and that I didn't know about.
But yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. People are thinking about it wrong, man. It's cool. It's cool information.
Yeah, it's a great big universe, and we're just really puny. We're just tiny little specks about the size of Mickey Rooney. That is Animaniacs.
Do they ever curse on Animaniacs? We're gonna cover that.
I'll make them curse. I'll dub it.
All right, well, let's move on to 10. Close Rick counters of the Rick kind, which is the one where the Council of Ricks apprehend our Rick and put him on trial for murder. This was another episode that, in my mind, like really continued to expand the lore of like how everything works in a big way that I didn't expect and was kind of like excited about. And that's just the idea that like, oh, there's this coalition of Ricks. Like there's a lot of other Ricks in the universe. They're all in the multiverse. They're all smart too. And they've formed this big space station club. And there's a whole society of Ricks and Mortys.
Yeah, there's a lot of like just fun nuggets in this episode, from of course evil Morty to the Gravity Falls Easter egg.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about that when we were watching it.
And again, I feel like what I like about season 1 is it just feels like it has a lot of more moments with heart in them, like that moment of Rick in this episode where we like see his memories and we see him like holding baby Morty and he starts tearing up. Like that's so good.
It's so good.
I wish we had so much more of it in the show. Like I understand why we don't. It works in doses, but it feels like it's almost too like few and far between after this season.
Agreed. And it also is like, and it's an interesting beat because it also could potentially have like lore / theory implications, because as far as we know, this Rick has only just come into Morty's life. And therefore, like if we're seeing this Rick's memories crying over a baby Morty, like does this imply that that was his original Morty and that something happened to him? And then there's also the nugget at the end where he's like, I guess this is technically for the evil Morty reveal, but he's like, you can cause some real problems if you get like an overconfident Morty or whatever. So I'm like curious, was that just for the evil Morty reveal, or is that also a hint towards Rick and his first universe? You know, if he is from a different,
it's his
universe.
first Morty, evil Morty.
Right. True. There's also that. Yeah. Could I'm sure.
I think
we'll find out eventually in a few years. Maybe.
I think too with moments like you guys are talking about, like that one. Even when they happen later on in the series, scattered they may be when they happen later on in the series, it's hard to tell when they're genuine because it makes me think of the Rick Shank Redemption one, where like there's all that stuff about like Beth and her mom, and then I'm pretty sure every fan of the show when they saw that they were like, "Oh shit!" But then it's I don't know if it actually happened because bro, like it just kind of. You could tell he like was pulling the wool over Buddy's eyes, and he's in control of what's going on and everything like that. So it's like, did he fabricate that? Did that actually happen? Like, I don't know. And it's hard to get attached to moments and characters when you're constantly questioning, like, is this really how you feel? Do you really care? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff. And the Rick and Morty characters are fun and they're funny. But I do have a hard time connecting to them sometimes because of stuff like that. Because I don't know if you mean the heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And I also think it's later. Sorry, go on.
No, you go. No, go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say later on, I think another thing that kind of impacts the more serious moments is that instead of being heart-filled, it's kind of the opposite, where like it's serious, but it's used to expose how flawed and terrible they are as people, instead of like trying to overcome their flaws. Yeah.
Right.
I get that.
I think it's also interesting to think that with this show, theoretically, unless a given episode explicitly states what universe they're in, we could be following any alternate Rick and Morty in any episode. Like they could, like that's like I don't think that's necessarily happening, but it could be like there's an episode in season 2, I believe, where through background details, the implication is that the Rick and Morty we follow the whole episode is not our Rick and Morty, which is really interesting. Like it's interesting, but it does kind of play into what you said, Tariq, is like especially because they're establishing how different our Rick and Morty can be from other Ricks and Mortys. It's like if we're not following them the whole time, what character development is real character development, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also something that no other show can do, you know, is like pull one over on the audience like that.
Yeah. I do think it's cool stuff. It's just it is kind of okay. So that is just kind of a thing, like for me, right? Is that like I do look for heart and characters and like what I can connect to, but they very much so know what kind of show they want to make, and they know what kind of stories they want to tell, and they know what kind of characters they want to put on screen. So it's not really a fault for them. I feel like if they really cared enough and wanted to give them actual heartfelt moments, we would have got a whole bunch more. You know what I mean? But that's not what they want to do. You can't really blame them for what they don't want to do. So, I get it. I do get it.
And it also does feel like it's part of the character. Like it's part of Rick's character where they slowly show that he does have some of these feelings, but it almost feels like part of, even in this next episode in the finale, like how the whole Wubba Lubba Dub Dub reveal, where it's like, it means I am in great pain. So like, I guess their idea is that Rick is masking and disguising all of his like suffering and pain and numbing that stuff. But he really does feel these things. He's just numbing it because he doesn't want to experience it. And while I do think that's like interesting from a character perspective, it's not easy to connect to it in the show,
Exactly.
Yeah. I love the evil Morty ending. I think that's such a good ending for this episode. And it was another thing where I'm like, oh, they're doing cool twists in this show. Like that was fun. They're setting something up. That song is again another good haunting song. Love the final sequence. What you guys have any other things to say about close Rick encounters?
I love Doofus Rick.
Doofus Rick is great. Love Doofus
He's great.
Rick.
I love him. He's so good.
Man.
I mean, Jerry sucks in it because he's kind of manipulative, and he only really fucks with him because like he looks up to him. It's like the first time I saw this episode, I thought it was like, oh nah, he vibed with him because he actually respects him. No, he vibes with him because he's like dick eating the whole time. That's why he likes him.
Right.
Like, beneath me, this is awesome.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is. Like a weird power trip thing. I think Doofus Rick is too genuine for like somebody like Jerry. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. He's a good
Jerry.
character. I like him a lot.
Jerry's so pathetic. Yeah, I love Doofus Rick. I'm kind of bummed they never brought him back. I feel like they should.
Yeah, sucks.
Yeah, maybe one day. All right, let's move on to the finale.
Yes.
Ricksy Business. This is the one where Beth and Jerry got out of town to a Titanic reenactment situation. And then Rick, Morty, and Summer threw a huge rager. I remember watching this back when it aired and being surprised that this was the finale because Close Rick Counters was so big and lore heavy and like twisty and turny. And this one is just like, we're gonna party, like that's the whole premise.
See, that's what I like about it. I feel like they recognized that the last episode was kind of bigger in scale for like the characters, and because like the show always has like a massive scale, but not really with the character arc. So I feel like they decided to just we made it through the season. Let's just have kind of a cool down episode with some little moments here and there, and it worked out very nicely.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a fun episode. I remember at the time I felt a little disappointed just because the last episode had blown my mind so thoroughly that I was like, I was just so jazzed about like the possibilities of that kind of sci-fi stuff and those twists and turns and the mysteries of Rick and Morty. And so like when this finale came out, I was like, oh, it's just a party episode, but it is such a fun episode. And then I also feel like I saved myself because I experienced that in this season. Whereas in season 3, a ton of the fan base was so pissed that the finale didn't follow up the Evil Morty follow up. They followed up Evil Morty in season 3. And then a lot of the fan base was mad that they didn't resolve that in season 3. And I was already in my head, like, I've done this before. I knew that wasn't going to happen in season 3. So I'm not disappointed, But this is also fun because it still is big in world building because of all the weird different types of aliens and people that come to the party. Like it introduces Bird Person and Gearhead. It's like there's a lot of and Tammy. There's a lot of fun stuff in this one. You
just brought up Bird Person. I have an anecdote. So when the show was first airing, I saw this episode. I might have saw it when it aired. I don't remember. But, me and my friends from high school watched the show. And it was well after that episode aired. I think season 2 even started. But my friend called me one day. And he was laughing. He was laughing really hard. And I was like, what's funny? Like, what was wrong? Like, what's funny? And he was laughing at the concept that they named the character Bird Person, and I never thought about how funny that was, but it's super
pretty good.
Because the way I see it is that somebody drew the picture and showed it to their friend. Like if I drew the picture, if I showed it to Kevin, it's like, oh Kevin, what does this look like? Looks like some kind of bird person. And then all right, let's go.
There it is. Another character in the books. And now he's a classic Rick and Morty character.
Yeah, he rocks.
It really does feel like they drew him first and then named him, or just like fucking threw darts. Landed on Bird and then Person.
It also weirdly fits the character because he's so formal and dry that he doesn't have much like personality to him. So it's kind of funny that his name is just so like it's exactly what he is, Bird Person.
Right.
Yeah. I also noted, gonna have to do this again. Futurama also did a Titanic thing in season 1. Just gonna throw that out there.
Damn, and I guess Rick and Morty kind of do it better because we didn't we didn't like that one, but yeah, we didn't love it. Yeah.
I also love what they do with the Titanic subplot in this episode. The idea that the tragedy is that they don't hit the iceberg is so funny.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of Bird Person real quick, I think what's so funny about like his stoic just like demeanor and the way he speaks is just like during the Rick dance portion, he just has Tammy on his lap.
Yeah.
That is pretty
Yep. Yeah, it's so funny.
Just the little things.
I still don't really understand how this ties into the twists with Tammy and Bird Person later. Right? Like in season 4, right? They like twist some stuff with those characters, and I'm like, were they really like undercover during this scene?
Yo, that came later. I have the Rick and Morty art book, and for Tammy's section, it actually says like, yeah, like we just thought of like I'm pretty sure they describe her as not intended to always be a secret agent. At first, she was just a dumb slut.
Well, there you go.
Kid, man. Why they say that? He's like 18.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds like how a writer's room full of dudes would have classified that character, you know? And then it makes sense that they gave the character more to do when more women came into the writer's room. That all tracks, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they also they liked working with Casey Steele, and they were like, yeah, like we should definitely bring Tammy back. And that's when they were like, all right, let's give her a personality.
Nice.
And not just be one of her friends.
I will say, it just going, because you brought up the art book, just going off the art. This is a really weird thing that I wrote down. I don't even know if anybody else would even notice it. But I really, really liked Nancy's design, like Summer's band friend. Like she just kind of has like the simple long face with the hair and the glasses. I really liked her design. I was like, oh, this is a really I like this design a lot. They tried to make her plain, but like I like it a lot. It's a really good design.
Yeah, I like that character too, and I like that. I like Summer's lesson in that. Like she's being so shitty to her friend just to try and seem popular, and then at the end that makes her the least likable person at the party, where like everyone's there's like, you're an asshole, Summer. We're not going to hang out with you now.
So isn't the lesson she learns in this one exactly what the damn Meeseeks was around to teach her? Like
maybe
about popularity, because when she started doing that, I was like, well, we just watched an episode earlier where like
that's a fair point. That is a fair point. It's kind of a repeat beat.
Yeah.
That's
beat repeat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It always felt though like it didn't feel like a real arc in Meeseeks and Destroy. It felt like it definitely felt like they were just trying to showcase that the Meeseeks accomplished their goals with Beth and Summer really fast, and Jerry had the problems. You know, right. that was kind of the purpose of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that is interesting. That's a good point. I didn't think about it.
Thank you.
Good stuff. That's a good thought, Tunefik Tariq.
Yeah. I really like Brad fighting
Abradolf Linkler.
Yeah, I like him. And I also, so you watched this with me, and so you heard me. But when he says, when he bumps into Brad and Brad says something, he's like, he says something like, "Watch it, boy." And then Brad's like, "Boy," and I said "boy" at the same time as Brad.
Same time.
And I didn't even it was so, I was like, yo, what? And then Rick, I like Rick, kick his ass, Brad. Like I like all of that. Like, this is always really good.
Abradolf Linkler is a weird concept.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, some funny moments, like when they're just when they're walking through that like other dimension, and he's just like, "I definitely think all people are created equal, but," and this doesn't even finish the thought. I'm just like, this is glad they didn't finish that thought.
Right.
Do you guys have any last thoughts about Ricksy Business before we talk about the season as a whole?
Gear Wars.
Gear Wars. Well, the interesting thing about the Gear Wars is they were never actually about the gears, so it's really interesting stuff.
That's big brain.
I feel like this episode, they just felt really proud to like finish the season, and like even at the end of the where Rick's like, "That's a wrap on season 1." Like you can just tell they like Royland sounds so excited in that delivery.
Yeah, I think they had a lot of fun with this episode. It felt like they were like, because it's a situation where you can bring in so many different aspects of the show, because that's like what the party idea allows for. So it really does just feel like they were throwing tons of ideas out there, and they're like, let's just have fun with this one. This one's going to be like a goofy mishmash of people and aliens, and it'll be a fun party. Doesn't
the ending carry over to the next episode?
Yes, because the season 2 premiere is like the moment that they all come back, and in fact, every single time we see the Smith household moving forward, you see the big crack around the house from when it got moved into the other dimension. Like there's a big crack circle around the whole house. But yeah, the opening, I think the opening episode involves some sort of fallout from them freezing the world for months and months. Another idea that Futurama did, just saying. Yeah, good stuff though. Good stuff.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about Rick and Morty season 1 and on rewatch? You love it? You like it?
I feel like it's definitely one of the best seasons, even with like all the growing pains around it. Just because I mean, again, the magic H word, I just feel like there's a lot of heart in season 1 that's missing from other seasons. And also, again, I just feel like there is like a narrative there of just adjusting to life with Rick. I feel like that also kind of accumulates into the party.
Totally.
Because there's Summer's friends, Rick's friends, and Morty's friends. It's like the whole gang's here.
It's just pretty simple. I like this season. I think you could probably say that my top 2 are the ones that I would like. Oh, okay, like I think my number 1 is an episode that I love, and my number 2 is an episode that I really, really like. But the rest of these I just kind of like.
Right.
I think it's good and I think it's funny. But I don't know what it is about. I don't know exactly what the disconnect is, and I think maybe watching through a bunch of these will, just like with Futurama, I will probably have a few epiphanies about how I feel about the series as a whole. But
for sure,
yeah, I don't know what it is, but like a lot of there's really great concepts, hilarious concepts, like stuff where if like the 3 of us were hanging out and one of y'all just brought up one of these concepts, like, yo, what if this happened? Like the entire room would laugh. So it's like really, really great concepts in that respect. But I don't know. Some of these don't hit as much as I was hoping for them to. But I do think it's a solid season. It has a really rough start, but it finds its footing quicker than a lot of other shows. It midway through the season, it looks and acts exactly like it still does today, like 7 years later. You know what I mean? Which is unheard of, especially for like a really, really, really popular show like it. Like you look at like the others, like Family Guy, Simpsons, and they don't. This night and day. You know what I mean?
Like
yeah. Like the structure and everything changes, but Rick and Morty still kind of has the same structure. And
and I do think that's to be applauded. Like I think that's borderline Herculean. You know what I mean? Like that is to be applauded. That like you found it that fast. Like so. I think
I think it helps that they do largely stick to like either movie parodies or critiquing a genre as a whole through their stories.
Right.
I think that kind of helps keep everything kind of like fresh, because there's always going to be movies and there's always going to be things to critique.
Right. I think for me, so going into this rewatch, I was pretty stoked because, like, in my mind, it'd been a couple years since I watched through this stuff. Obviously, last year I watched season 4, but I didn't rewatch anything from before it. And in my mind, I was like, oh, season 1 is my favorite season. Like, in my mind, I pretty much was season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4 ranked in that order. Like, I think I just like them as they've come out. But I was kind of surprised to watch this and realize how much I didn't like. I still overall liked it a lot, but I was surprised by that I didn't love it as much as I had previously. And I still think that my top 3 episodes of this season are still probably in my top 5 of the whole show. So I still think that, like, kind of tracks, but I was at least close to the top 5, around there. It could all change as we watch through this all again, but I was surprised. I was like, in my mind, this was a lot overall stronger of a season than it was. And I still think it's really good. I, like you said, Kevin, I think the heart is very apparent, and that's something that I'm drawn to. That's going to be an arc that you learn about me over the course of this podcast. All of my favorite stuff in these shows is going to have a lot of heart. If you go back to my Futurama rankings, all my favorite Futuramas are the ones with the most heart.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I like catharsis.
Right, exactly. And so, overall, it was an interesting and surprising rewatch because I still love what I love about this season, but there's a lot of things that didn't hold up as high in my mind. But still a really strong first season of animation and TV. And, obviously the show is strong enough to, it's the biggest cartoon on the planet still, like right now. It's like, I think at this moment it is still the most popular cartoon that's currently airing. I can't think of one that's more popular, to the point where they renewed it for 70 episodes at one time, which is bananas.
Not a season order, in episode order.
Yeah.
What are you guys gonna do if, like, close to, like, the long-awaited season 10 in however many years, they renew it for another 10 seasons?
I don't know, man. I mean, I guess I'll just keep watching it every week. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just watch it every week. But it's going to get to a point where, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm already at the point where, like, season 5 trailer dropped and there's some really interesting nuggets in it that are get my brain turning, but I didn't watch it and think, can't wait. I wasn't sitting there like, all right, season 5.
Yeah, I was it's more like, oh, this is going to be fun to watch when it comes.
Exactly.
But, like,
exactly.
there are more things I'm excited about right now.
I feel like there is a quality of like a standard quality for Rick and Morty, and it tends to still meet that quality, but it doesn't often. It doesn't blow my mind anymore like this first season did a couple times.
Yeah.
And the second season did a couple times. And even the third season. I think my favorite episode of the whole show is in the third season. But it's, I'm also curious because it does feel like they are doing interesting writers' room turnovers. Like, if I'm not mistaken, it seems like Roiland and Harmon ran the first 2 seasons, and I think Mike McMahon ran the seasons 3 and 4. Or no, maybe... Yeah, I think he still ran season 4. And then I think Jeff Loveness is ran 5. So, like, they're changing out, they're changing out people. So to me, a lot of my favorite shows have done that. You know what I mean? Like, if I feel like if it has a different vibe for a season, they're always bringing in new talent and finding new ideas to talk about. So maybe even though season 4 wasn't my favorite season, maybe season 5 will be. Who knows? Kevin, I forgot to tell you this, but Tariq and I do a ranking at the end of every episode.
We do.
We rank the episodes of the season. So we'll go through ours. If you want to try to write one out and do one, you're free to. You can also abstain. No pressure. But let's get into the rankings. I'll go first if you want. We'll start with 11, Raising Gazorpazorp. 10, Anatomy Park. 9, Something Wicked This Way Comes. 8, Ricksy Business. 7, The Pilot. 6, M. Night Shaym-Aliens. 5, Lawnmower Dog. 4, Meeseeks and Destroy. 3, Close Encounters of the Rick Kind. 2, Rixty Minutes. And 1, Rick Potion number 9.
There's a couple. We line up a couple times.
Nice.
We do line up a couple times. 11, the pilot, 9. Oh fuck. 11, pilot, 10. Anatomy Park, 9, M. Night Shyam-aliens.
Aliens.
By the way, Kevin, I've never messed up while doing this before. I think you're making me nervous.
Guys making me nervous.
I see we got 8, Lawnmower Dog, 7, Meeseeks and Destroy, 6, Raising Gazorpazorp, 5, something Rickety This Way Comes, 4, Rick Potion number 9, 3, Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind, 2, Ricksy Business, and 1, Rixty Minutes.
Nice.
All right.
What we got, table?
I'm going to go. Yeah. So this is a bit more off the cuff. But I think from digesting both the rewatch and just the conversations we had, my 11 would be Anatomy Park, then followed by the pilot, then Something Rick Comes This Way. After that, probably Meeseeks and Destroy, just because, again, I think the assault scene does kind of knock it down a little bit. It just makes it hard to rewatch, and I think rewatch value is important for these episodes.
For sure.
After that, I would go M. Night Shaym-Aliens. Then Lawnmower Dog. Then Ricksy Business. Raising Gazorpazorp, then Ricksy Business, then Rixty Minutes, Rick Potion number 9, and then my number 1 would be Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind.
Nice. We have the same top 3 in a different order, Kevin.
I noticed.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one. Honestly, though, even like reading back my thing, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I might rearrange a couple of these later. I'm already feeling like, I should put Ricksy Business a little higher, Meeseeks and Destroy a little lower. But I always feel that way after talking about them on the podcast.
Right. Yeah.
This was fun, Kevin.
Meeseeks and Destroy. I feel like I just have it higher than I would have placed it, just because, again, the Meeseeks stuff is so good. Right. But I feel like it's the only episode of Rick and Morty where if it was on TV, I would actively not want to watch it at a certain point where I would just want to change it.
Yeah, that's where I'm so conflicted, because I love everything about it except that thing. And that thing is so hard to watch, but the rest of it is so good. And even what that thing that I don't like, what it leads to in the story, I like. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a struggle. That one's a struggle for sure. But it is there's definitely something to say about it not being very rewatchable for that reason.
Right.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. Kevin, you're our first guest. You're our first Cartoons That Cursed guest. How do you feel about it? How was your experience?
I really enjoyed it. I wish I had more notes. But
you're like me on the first one. I showed up to the first episode with 2 notes.
But overall, I had a really good time. I hope the people like it. I hope the people like me.
Kevin, so many people like you. Many people like you. We like you. We're glad you came on. It was a lot of fun, and we want to have you on again. Hopefully we'll find some more stuff in the future that you want to talk to us about.
I'm down for home movies.
Dude, home movies I can't wait for. We gotta figure out when to schedule home movies, because not only do I keep getting more excited about home movies the more we talk about it, but we're getting a lot of comments requesting home movies, which is kind of random. Like not one you would expect to get a lot of requests for.
I do think for an adult podcast, like an adult animation podcast, that makes sense, just because home movies was so iconic in the early 2000s, especially for like Adult Swim. Like I definitely think when I thought of adult animation, like for the longest time, home movies was always up there, like one of the first shows.
I'll take it a step even further. I think that the generation that grew up with home movies likes podcasts because home movies is a podcast.
It's the perfect show for us to cover.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta figure out when we can put that on the schedule, because right now we're kind of doing the interchangeable long season, short season, long season, short season. So maybe maybe it's our next short season show. We'll see. That might be a good one.
There's too many shows.
I want to watch some home movies now. I'm about to put that on.
Yeah, dude, it's a good comfort show for me. It's like a good show. I like watching that show when I go to sleep because I kind of just giggle myself to sleep when watching home movies. But this is great. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Cartoons That Curse. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on all audio platforms where you can. Subscribe to us on YouTube, comment, press the like button. You know, all that business. Huge thanks to Michael Yunez for producing and editing the podcast. Thank you to Kerrifique for our art. Thank you to Jakeneutron for our music. Yeah, I don't know. See you fucking later.
Yeah.